Good afternoon and welcome to Bearcast News. I'm Preston Stober.
And I'm Sally Bishop. Coming up, we'll be talking to the winners of the recent student presidential election and get to know what their plans are for UC.
And we'll shed light on the university's lifting of mask mandates and how they impact students and staff.
And later, we'll be talking to a student whose family is in Russia and how he is coping with the ongoing war.
Let's get started. The votes are in, and Isaac Smithereen and Yulia Martinez will be the University of Cincinnati's student body president and vice president next year. Sally Bishop spoke with the team about the race and what they plan to do in office.
It was an unforgettable day for Smitherman and Martinez when they found out they had won UC's student presidential race.
And so as I passed them, I'm like, all right, I'm ready for you to break my heart tonight. And I sat down at the table. I was so stressed. I didn't want to talk to anybody, which felt awful. And then Isaac walks in, and then he's just so cool. He just walks in.
Hard work, determination, and a lot of time went into the month-long campaign. The pair's platform involves sustainability, renaming McMicken Hall, and providing free menstrual products in every campus bathroom. UC student Hannah Rizzi voted for the candidates in the race. She's confident in their abilities to lead the school and look forward to what they have in store.
I'm so excited. I voted for Isaac and Julia. They're both super passionate about sustainability, and I have such an interest in that too. So I'm honestly just excited to see what they're going to do on campus and see how we can get UC to go more green.
Smitherman and Martinez will be sworn into presidency later this month. For more information on their platform, check out their Instagram at smitherman.martinez. Sally Bishop, Bearcast News.
Big changes coming not only in who leads the student body, but the university is making some big changes now that it's moving to the Big 12 Conference. Lily Tedrick says it means some new construction to benefit athletes.
Erin Evans is one of the top women's golfers and president of the Student Athletic Advisory Committee at UC. She feels it's time for a change off the course. UC is getting the ball rolling for a new athletic facility to replace the Shakely Athletic Center. It will have space for more than just physical workouts.
The American Conference has an initiative called Powerful Minds that happens every semester, and it really shows that student athletes need help mentally and not only physically.
Evans golfs 30 hours a week while taking a full-time class load. She says it's time for athletes to have somebody to be there for them. To take the first serve, UC hired psychotherapist Lanisha Nickel to head the program for 450 athletes. Evans says this is the right step for the school since it's hard for athletes to receive help right now.
Having multiple new counselors and more of a team will help all the student athletes.
The university's board just approved of a $7 million opening fund for the project. They also just approved of a $100 million donation, which is the biggest donation in UC's history.
Evans and the Bearcat athletes will have a place to check in on their mental health, and not just their physical health. Lily Tedrick, Bearcats News.
After 2 long years, the Reds' opening day parade is back. The Reds welcome the Cincinnati faithful to the banks in downtown Cincinnati April 12th to celebrate the return of the MLB season. This after delay because of a 90-day lockout. But both sides reached an agreement in March to get the season back on track. This will be the first full opening day parade since 2019. COVID postponed the season in 2020 and forced drastic capacity cuts in 2021. The opening day game itself plays in primetime on ESPN2 in Atlanta against the Braves April 7th. Reds fans may be discouraged by the team's recent loss of key players, but everyone can agree Cincinnatians cannot wait for a full parade to welcome back the season.
A leading magazine called UC one of the most beautiful campuses, but for people with disabilities, it's not so easy to get around. Olivia Mead shows us just how UC ranks in accessibility.
With beautiful architecture, great academics, and a bustling campus, UC seems to have it all. But student Caitlin Zielinowski says it's harder for people with disabilities to get around campus.
If I wasn't on the first floor, I don't know how I would have done it because there's no elevators in Stratford Heights buildings.
Zielinowski was temporarily on a knee scooter after a major ankle surgery.
I was out for a couple months, but still that was a really hard time for me to get around.
She says getting to dining halls alone was a struggle.
My roommates would walk right down the stairs because there's a ton of stairs right there, but I would have to scoot all the way down and then come all the way back up and then down again.
And she's not alone. UC student Lindsay Bamberger has spina bifida and numbness in her feet, making it harder to get around campus.
I went to the CCM main campus probably like twice on my knee scooter, and I just quickly realized like that's not going to happen. So I just stayed at UC Blue Ash just a little bit longer until I was able to walk again.
She says some paths on campus make it even harder.
Like, there were multiple times where I would catch a gap in the cobblestone and like fall over.
But Bamberger says one solution might be simpler than you'd think.
Making sure that accessible routes are put in place, but also that we have more signage is really important on campus. That's as cheap as getting signage and putting it up, you know?
We reached out to University Accessibility Services for comment, but they didn't return our calls. Adding handrails or putting up signs would help make campus beautiful for all students. Olivia Mead, Bearcast News.
UC students are helping others through the power of puppies. Four Paws for Ability is a campus program that brings a fur-ever friend to children in need. This is Fontina. She's a 4-month-old golden retriever puppy, a part of the Italian Delights Four Paws litter. The nonprofit provides free service dogs to children with autism. It's a national organization based in Xenia, Ohio. College students across Ohio train the pups. The idea is dogs can socialize just as much as college students do by going to class and club meetings with their trainers. Elizabeth Rochford is a senior at UC training Fontina, so one day she can provide children with the socialization they need to thrive.
I have Fontina, and every day tons of people come up to me and they're like, oh my God, can I pet your dog? What's her name? Can I see her? And all those interactions that I get, the child will also get, and those are interactions that kids with autism don't get every day, so that's such a huge thing for them.
Four Paws is always looking for new volunteers. To apply to train a service dog, head to their website, fourpawsforability.com.
It took 2 years, but things are finally seeming like they're returning to how they used to be before COVID hit. Nate Hyde tells us UC's latest moves toward before times.
Around a week and a half before spring break, the University of Cincinnati notified its students of changes to the mask policy. First, masks became optional, except for classrooms and labs, and then they became optional everywhere.
I felt like it came out of nowhere. I thought they'd wait until next semester for sure.
Many people were happy by the first major glimpse of normalcy in 2 years, but some remain cautious and say it could be too early.
You know, I know it's been like a long 2 years, but COVID is still here and it's still deadly, and no one really knows when the next variant could show up.
The university says masks will stay optional unless there's a spike in cases and deaths in the area. That leaves many hoping, as COVID rates remain low, that students can finally see each other's faces again.
It wasn't until after I stepped foot in the classroom again after the policy change that I realized I missed seeing everybody's faces.
Even those cautious about the mandates lifting admit to feeling refreshed at the sight of classrooms with no face coverings.
You know, I still wear a mask when I'm sick or around sick people. But I definitely wear it less than I used to, and that's mainly just because I'm craving some sort of normalcy again.
More and more places have done away with their mask requirements, and the amount of people wearing masks has fallen dramatically. With restaurants, theaters, and many other businesses opening up to full capacity, students can finally see the light at the end of the COVID tunnel. We may still feel COVID's effects for a while, but life finally feels like it's going back to normal. Nate Hyde, Bearcast News.
As COVID-19 restrictions lighten up, one local artist is taking the stage indoors for the first time since the start of the pandemic. 2022 marks 16 years since Mole Sullivan started performing, and 2 since her last indoor show. Sullivan is at high risk for COVID, so she's only played 2 small outdoor shows since the lockdown. For Sullivan, Motor is the perfect venue to start playing again.
And I'm like 10% shitting my pants, 90% just feeling so thankful to be here around so many beautiful people.
But she isn't stopping anytime soon. Sullivan will be going on a Midwest tour at the end of this month, and this time you'll see her inside.
I can't even remember the last time I was at an in-person concert.
Have to go watch Mo Sullivan.
Yes, for sure. That isn't all. Lots of other news coming up after the break.
And we'll talk to a UC student whose family is living in Russia and how they are dealing with the war.
And how the face of Over the Rhine is changing and what it means for the people of downtown Cincinnati after this.
We've all seen the sad scenes from Ukraine since the Russian invasion began. For at least one Cincinnati student, those scenes hit a little closer to home. We sat down with them to get the scoop. Scenes like this in Ukraine have become seen all over the world, but for one Cincinnati student, they hit a little too close to home. Slade Surikov is a second year at the University of Cincinnati. For Slade, this war involves family. His grandfather was born in Kyiv, Ukraine, and his family currently lives in Russia. He says the outcome of the war is very important to his grandfather.
You know, it's his hometown. It's his capital city. And it's something that he really doesn't want to see get taken over, and nor do the Ukrainian people.
Although he was born and raised in the United States of America, Slade completely understands the way life is like in Russia.
We had my grandpa's birthday in Russia last February, and it was one of those things where talking to them leading up to the trip, it was a big key. Do not speak out against the government when you're there. Don't say anything about the government.
Slade knows that his family, as well as many other families in Russia, find themselves in a very dangerous position.
I wouldn't say that they're on board with the war, but they don't have the right to come out and say it, and they're scared. They don't have the right to come out and say, we want this to stop.
Slade prays that his family stays out of harm's way and that their way of life does not return to how his father remembers growing up in the Soviet Union.
My dad does not like to touch on what happened back in the USSR, just because life over there at the time was so bad. So the Soviet Union, the life of the people, if you're not in that top 1%, it's not a very good life to be living.
In the midst of tragedy and heartbreak, Slade is making sure to keep his focus on his schooling and his family. He is just one example of the impact this attack has had on people across the world. With Bearcast Media, I'm Preston Stover.
A few weeks ago, we did a story on the Forest Fair Mall and how it's barely hanging on. Well, now it's set to be torn down, creating a difficult situation for one small business. One of the largest malls in Greater Cincinnati is under contract for demolition to make way for a new $150 million development. The mall opened in July 1988, but has been declining in popularity and revenue since the beginning. Only 2 anchor stores remain, Kohl's and Bass Pro Shop. A smaller shop, Arcade Legacy, has also hung on, and now its owner is looking to relocate.
All right, yeah, I know the mall's being torn down. I know we'll be relocating soon. We don't know where yet, but it is going to be somewhere in the immediate vicinity.
Arcade Legacy has built a customer base, and the owner hopes it will follow wherever he ends up moving.
Video game lovers are finding some unexpected solutions after Nintendo announced it will be shutting down the servers to most of its digital game stores in March 2023. That means all kind of legacy content will be much less accessible or even completely lost. Bob Knopf is one of those consumers who wants to keep his content around, so he's looked and found a new solution: piracy.
See, I don't enjoy pirating, but I can't justify shelling out hundreds or thousands of dollars to play old titles, especially when they can be easily available digitally.
He's not the only one. The internet is full of guides to piracy to help people keep their favorite games, TV shows, and movies accessible. But it isn't legal. Those who get caught downloading and selling pirated content can face up to prison time up to 5 years.
Over the Rhine has been going through some major changes in recent years, and not just with all the bars and restaurants.
Jack Rohr shows us there's a big change in who lives in the neighborhood.
For decades, Over the Rhine had a reputation: underdeveloped and not safe. Sure, there were hotspots like Music Hall, Finley Market, and bars like Pins Mechanical Company. But many people found the area unsafe because of the high crime rate. That's changed in recent years. Peter Kaprisky knows firsthand. He's called this neighborhood home for more than a decade.
So I think that in terms of safety downtown, I think that as it is in every big city, we would be concerned, but that was not a deterrent for us. But it was a concern, as we found out later, it was a concern for our friends and family members and some other acquaintances. So when we would invite people to come and visit, suddenly there was some resistance, or plans would not work out quite as we would hope for.
The city has worked hard to make Over the Rhine a safe, family-friendly area. It added events like movie screenings at Washington Park. Developers have remade areas like the Vine Street and Court Street communities. with new developments like Kroger on the Rhine, complete with a food court upstairs and monitored parking outside. Ron Hoffman, a local, says it's a good start, but there's even more room to grow.
People are really using this area, using the park. Park has activities going on almost every day of the week in the summer. You have restaurants, you have various types of shops and so forth going on in some of the nearby streets. So it's a completely changed area in that regard.
While the area is improving, this does raise concern for people living in lower income areas who are being displaced by all the new development.
Of course, so you have the problem of what happens to the people who are of the low income. Where do they go?
While many people stick to the newly polished and ritzy part of the neighborhood, not far from it sits rows of dilapidated buildings. A work in progress, still unfinished. Jack Rohr, Bearcast News.
A small business near campus has learned how social media can change a business completely. Capanova USA is a hat store on Shortvine, but since opening its doors less than a year ago, it's seen significant changes. Why? Content manager Lauren Williams says Instagram has changed the game for the Capanova crew.
We drop a new product every Sunday, so the week before we drop it, it really helps to create the hype for that product and to get people excited to buy it. Our posts average about 800 to 2,000 likes. We're all in our lower 20s, I want to say around 20 to 24 years old. So it's a lot of young creative minds. We work perfectly together. I've never worked with a team that meshes as well as we do and creates ideas as well as we do.
With more than 32,000 Instagram followers, the Hat Boutique is reaching bigger audiences than the owners ever imagined. They now ship custom hats worldwide because of their social media success.
You know, I haven't gotten to check that out yet.
Yeah, might have to go run over there and get a Reds hat.
Yeah,
Support
for
the crew.
sure. Speaking of, Cincinnati is enjoying a banner year in sports.
With the Bengals reaching the Super Bowl and the Reds trying to make a comeback, we have many opportunities on our hands.
We know you want to hear all about it. Caitlin Zielinski is up next with all your sports highlights. Stick around.
It was a great year for football fans, both here on campus and across all of Cincinnati. But that's not the only sport being played in the Queen City.
Caitlin Zielinski is here with all the sports news. And Caitlin, tell us about the basketball season at UC.
Yeah, you know, the basketball season for the University of Cincinnati wasn't the greatest. Both the men's and women's teams didn't produce the results that fans expected. The men's team went 18-15 overall in head coach Wes Miller's first season. The team looked good at the start, going 5-0 with wins over Georgia and Illinois, but really struggled during conference play, going 7-11. They tried to make a run during the conference tournament, but lost to Houston in a well-fought battle in the second round. The women's team finished the season 11-17, winning the Crosstown Shootout, but also struggled in conference, going 4-11. Also lost to Houston in the conference tournament. Both teams didn't make the NCAA tournament, but if you're a basketball fan, you definitely have enjoyed March Madness. This March has been pretty wild. The 15-seed St. Peter's Peacocks made history by making it to the Elite Eight. They knocked out number 2 seed Kentucky and number 7 seed Murray State, but sadly fell to UNC in the third round. The country rallied around the Peacocks and supported them through the tournament. The Final Four shaped up to be a good one, with all blue blood teams, Kansas, UNC, Duke, and Villanova. And the best part is that UNC and Duke will face each other for the first time in the NCAA tournament, and it could also be Coach K's final game. If he won the whole thing, what a way to end such a historic career. A lot has been happening in the baseball world, and the MLB season hasn't even started yet. The UC team took advantage of the MLB lockout and had a record-breaking attendance for their home opener against Ohio State, which they won with a walk-off home run. They have had a good season so far, and senior Griffin Merritt leads the conference in home runs with 9. As for the other baseball team in Cincinnati, fans aren't very happy with the current state of the organization. Sell the Team Bob has been trending on Twitter recently after the Reds traded away a few of their star players, saying they are rebuilding again. This has made Reds fans very unhappy, and some fans have even said they won't support the club until winning is a goal for them again. And, you know, that'd be really unfortunate for the Reds organization to lose a lot of fans in this, but, you know, I kind of give it to them. You know, it kind of happened with the Bengals a couple years ago, but hopefully the Reds leaders can shape up and figure something out.
I just hope he doesn't sell the team to one of my lottery tickets hits. That'd be the best thing. But as sports events tend to liven up cities, so do creative art events.
A local art show and market is back at Rheingeist Brewery after having to shut down due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Art on Vine brings more than 80 artists from around the Cincinnati area to show off, sell, drink, and raise money for nonprofits. Artist Greg Matze says his art takes its heart from what this city has to offer.
I love to be able to paint, local scenes and different landmarks and, famous people locally, and kind of put my own little spin to it. I have one painting where I painted Fiona as kind of a classic version of Fiona, and I made her a Fiona Lisa. She's a popular one.
While some artists paint, others find their art in jewelry, welding, and even baking. Art on Vine will continue to hold an art show monthly until June.
I wouldn't say I'm much of an artist myself, but that'd be nice to go to.
Me too. I'm a buyer of art.
There you go,
I can't do it myself.
That does it for us today.
Hope to see you tomorrow. Have a good night.